Welcome back to the Denver Radio Real Estate Show. I'm Cheryl Garlock with Colorado Front Range Properties. I am so glad you could be with us here today because my very special guest, you are special, Ryan. You know that, right?
Thank you, Cheryl.
Right. He is. Ryan Hardesty with Hardesty Consulting. I want to tell you guys, if you've ever bought or sold a home before there, and you have these home inspections there, sometimes, more frequently than not, we need the extra skill set of a structural engineer. That is where Ryan comes in. Ryan, how long have you been a structural engineer?
Had my business since '01, and before that, graduated in '96. So I've been doing it for a little bit.
Well, listen, I've got to tell you something. I mean, really, Ryan does an excellent job as far as inspecting property is concerned, and this is really important because frequently we as realtors will go into properties and frankly, we do dread the home inspection. You know that, don't you, Ryan?
Well, the home inspection is not a big deal. Inviting a structural engineer to the house is really bad.
Yes, it is.
Yes, we're the bad guys. The home inspectors are good.
Yeah. But sometimes you cannot avoid the need for a structural inspection. Let's talk a little bit about why, some of the reasons where we might actually need to bring a structural engineer out to a property, because we've had that experience a few times.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10 is when the home inspector sees some red flags where he needs further evaluation. And so I come out on site if that's the case. Sometimes when you go out and you show a house and you see those things visually, you may want to have the engineer out before the home inspector comes out just to see if there is a structural issue. But usually when the home inspector is doing his inspection and he's just a general practitioner, he's looking at the whole global scale of things, he may find some things that he is not comfortable with structurally. So he'll refer back to the structural engineer to come out and do that.
We call that pleading the fifth, Ryan.
Yes. Politically correct, yes.
So let's talk a little bit about, as a realtor, I'm always frequently talking to people about how we have bentonite in our area. Tell everyone what bentonite is.
It's just a clay. It's just basically, sometimes it's a low to moderate swell clay. It's still bentonite. It's just a term. And then sometimes you get a highly expensive clay to a clay stone. That's the stuff you really want to stay away from. It's hard to get away from bentonite in the area because it's everywhere. But there's certain degrees of expansion in the area but basically it's just a term. That's just a term for clay in the area.
And the reason that's important is because we have a lot of homes, needless to say, when you're buying a home, or in some cases when you're selling a home, you've had some movement in the house there and you don't exactly know what it's come from, but all of a sudden these beautiful, colorful cracks show up.
You gotta love those cracks. Those are conversation pieces.
Yes, they are conversation pieces. So
my theory is all houses move. That is a given. Some move more than others. And then sometimes when they move, they stress. And the way they stress, they crack. And then that's when we start talking to the engineering community to see what's what and why.
Right, and let's not let everyone get confused that a hairline crack, is a really, just because you see a crack, it doesn't mean you have a major league problem here. You really are talking about more significant cracks. Can you describe that?
Well, yeah, when you're looking at foundations, which is composed of concrete, when concrete dries out, it will shrink. You're going to get some shrinkage there, and that's fine. When you're dealing with drywall cracks, and especially around corner beads or corners of the foundation, you are going to get cracking in those areas. And so normal cracks, normal homeowner maintenance items that should be painted or patched are fine. When we get into the more severe cracks where you can stick a quarter or maybe 2 quarters into it, then we start talking about stress.
Right, and let's talk about some of the methods that you might use to mitigate that kind of a stress, because I know we've actually worked on some projects where we've actually done the actual mitigation, and then there are some suggestions that can be done, say for a subsequent buyer on a property there. But some of the mitigation types of things that might be done to help offset some of the damage.
Sure. And that's an option B. Option A is obviously do nothing. Sometimes we like to do that. Option B is to do mitigation, where we protect what has happened and prevent it from happening again. Worst case scenario, option 3 is a repair. But mitigation is always to get that one variable that's in the soil that affects foundation out, or at least prevent it from being a huge variable. Water is one of the 3 main constituents of soil. The soil is very complex in the area, but if you simplify things in soil and relate it to solids, air gap, or in this case a gas or air, and then water is that liquid. So water is the only variable, or one of the main variables, that really influence and affect the soil and the foundation. So if we could prevent water from coming into the system or going out of the system, then you can prevent a lot of that movement. So mitigation is drainage control.
Okay, so drainage. Sometimes that means too that you have to maybe create a swell, I think is what they call it, in the backyard or something like that, or
Yep.
wherever it is.
Defense number one is always to drain away from the foundation and then make sure it keeps going. If it doesn't, sometimes you're in Denver area, especially when everything's clustered together and everything's packed in like sardines, you have to create some type of drainage swell or even a French drain to help divert it out because we don't have the lateral room to get it to run.
Right. Yeah, that's great. And how far away should water be draining away from the foundation? This goes to actually your gutters and your downspouts, right?
Yeah, the downspout extensions are great because the main source of water on a lot, and depending if you have the size of the lot, is from the roof. You got a very large roof. If I took a snapshot picture looking down from the sky, that roof covers a good percentage of that lot. So all the downspouts need to be extended at least 5. I like 10, but at least 5 feet away from the foundation because the foundations are excavated or over excavated beyond the perimeter of the foundation. So we have a big hole that they created when they were starting construction. So we got to get outside the boundaries of where they excavated so we don't start filling water in our bird bath. So 5 feet with the extensions, drainage and grading, if we can get those 10 feet out before we create a swale or some type of French drain would be ideal.
Okay. So, wow, that's interesting there. I remember, do you remember, you've been here a long time. Yeah, you said at least 01 there, but
Yep.
I think it was about an 04 or something. We had this terrible blizzard. And I must have had, I don't know, around my house like 5 feet of snow or something. And I remembered I panicked about all the snow being built up around the foundation. And my girls just happened to be home from school. And I said, grab your shovels, honey. We're going digging.
Yeah.
So I dug a trench around the whole perimeter of the house there. Nobody else did that, but just me there. But, then I thought about it later on after I did that. I said, well, where's that snow going to go anyway after it melts?
In the ground.
It was going to go on the ground, but at least I've tried to keep it away from the foundation. Keeping it away from the foundation is really, really, really important. On some of our repairs, what kinds of costs might we be looking at?
A simple repair, depending on if we're purely talking about foundation repairs, if only a corner of the foundation is being affected, you could be on the line of $3,000 to $4,000, depending if we have to pier it or reinforce it or epoxy or whatever we need to do. Worst case scenario, we're dealing with a lot more of the foundation, 80, 90, 100,000.
Wow. Well, there's a whole lot more we could talk to Ryan about, but we've got to move on here right now, so we'll be right back with more from the Denver Radio Real Estate Show. Get your pen and paper ready because I've got Property Showcase coming up.